And welcome to Studio 5. Mark Wahlberg, Mel Gibson, and Teresa Ruiz team up to bring us the story, the real-life story of Father Stuart Long. He was a boxer who became a priest against amazing odds. We'll share his story throughout this entire show. But first, let's begin our countdown of the top 5 stories in the world of uplifting entertainment. Here are the first 2. At number 5.
If God's been good to you, let's go to Mama's church. Let's go.
It's Kirk Franklin and Maverick City Music's performance at this year's BET Awards.
And the winner is... Woo! Little Baby and Kirk Franklin!
And this moment.
So many black churches died in ignorance because the pastor would not step down and pass the baton. So tonight, because I've been blessed, I want to be a blessing to the next generation. Maverick City deserves this baton. This award, I want to grace it to Maverick City, the next generation of gospel music. Give it up for them right now.
At number 4.
Whoever once told me, when things are too dangerous to say, sing.
Elvis enters the summer box office at number 1 this weekend with more than $31 million, beating Top Gun Maverick, which did $29.6.
The way he sings is God-given, so there can't be nothing wrong with it.
That's a great start to our countdown. We'll pick it back up in just a little bit. Now we turn to Father Stu. He was an amateur boxer whose failing career forced him to move to Los Angeles to find money and fame in film. But then he suffers a tragic motorcycle accident. We have 3 Studio 5 sit-downs to help us tell the full story. We're going to begin with Mark Wahlberg, who has the starring role in the film Father Stu.
What brings you here?
And I figured no better place to be discovered than the supermarket.
Hey, did I see you on a television series?
You do movies? You don't work in the entertainment industry at all?
No, man.
Life's gonna give you a gut full of reasons to be angry. You only need one, to be grateful.
Your son is about to make a huge mistake.
Well, I'm gonna be a priest.
For Halloween.
So, Mark, a funny thing happens at dinner with your priest. You get introduced to the story of Father Stu. What do you remember most about that introduction?
I don't know. I was trying to figure out how do you compare that? It's like getting advice you think is from a doctor from a guy who is a shoe salesman. It just didn't make much sense. It sounded like a funny story, but something finally hit me and it resonated with me. And I had been looking for a long time to do more because I know, I've been so blessed and so fortunate. It's not to forget about where I came from. It's to utilize those talents and gifts for God's greater use and purpose. And so when it hit me, I was like, you know what? This is what I got to do. And what better than to find a way to utilize my best talents and attributes and what I do best in my primary business, and to find a story that would bring people closer to God or to faith or to each other.
No one wants to hear the gospel from the mouth of a gangster.
Maybe that's exactly what they need.
We're talking about a tough childhood, a broken family, deadly health diagnosis. How does this man still arrive at a new sense of purpose in light of all that he went through?
It's amazing. It really will challenge all of us and hopefully inspire all of us to be able to deal with all of the difficulty and adversity that we face. He handled it with such dignity and such grace, and he really felt like it was a gift from God to bring him closer to God through his suffering, which it's a remarkable way of looking at things.
There's a man going around taking names.
We've all been wrong, and we've all done some wrong.
But he came to forgive us. In this day and age that we live, where we all have been going through it, and we all have suffered, we've lost people that we love, and we've seen people lose their livelihoods and businesses and everything else. It's remarkable how timely this message is. It's certainly not my doing. I would like to take credit for it, but we know that there are powers at work that are well beyond our understanding.
There is concern amongst the diocese that your infirmity will render you unable to be a priest.
Listen to the words long written down.
What you guys get, one phone call a week in here? Who you gonna call, huh?
I know you feel it's important that people make time to see this particular film in the theater.
Yeah.
Why do you think that's important?
It's a theatrical experience. You need to see it and feel it with people next to you. It's the kind of thing too where you're laughing, you're crying, you're all kind of together, and we're reminded that we do need to be together. We need things that are going to bring us closer together and not separate us, or, you know, everybody's kind of at home. They got the remote, they pause it, oh, watch the rest later, or they kind of go take a phone call. There's so much to be missed, and this is kind of an experience that I think when people walk out, they are on an emotional high, but they also feel a bit challenged themselves just to do a little bit more and to be a little bit better.
I can't help but to recognize the physical transformation that we watch you go through. I mean, I want to say you packed on 30 pounds for this role. How difficult was that, and why did you think that was important?
It was miserable, and it was important because, and this is very important, I get it, I've done it a bunch of times, actors talking about their physical transformations for the part. Stu transformed so much physically and spiritually. You know, everything about him was predicated on his physical prowess until he came down with this rare disease. And then as his body started to deteriorate, his spirituality soared. So you had to really kind of see that and feel that. And I've seen that happen to my dad and to many people that I was close to, my mom, and just to see that and make sure that people felt that it was happening and that it was real. I just wanted to make it as real as possible.
We shouldn't pray for an easy life, but the strength to endure a difficult one.
I know you had the opportunity to speak to his dad in preparation for this. What were those conversations like?
Very enlightening and also very funny. You know, it is one of those things where sharing those little anecdotes and understanding, you know, a parent's point of view, to have lost not one child but two children, it's devastating. My mom had to bury my two oldest sisters before she passed, and I know she was never the same. But to see how Bill handled it and the making of the movie, and how proud he is and knows that Stu is still at work, and this is all Stu's doing, that this movie's being made, that I'm out here kind of promoting his messaging, echoing that to other people. He gets a big kick out of it. He's got a smile on his face, and he didn't always, but Stu's secret mission was to get his parents together, to get them sober, and to have them both baptized, and he was able to do all that before he passed.
Don't you dare go giving up on yourself. Never.
It is rated R for its adult language. You've got much more on the story coming up. Next up.
I can't say I never gave you nothing.
Yeah, I skipped over thanking you. Went straight to the source.
Mel Gibson brings the role of Father Stu's dad to the big screen.
Mel, how would you describe Bill Long?
Bill know you're fussing with his truck?
I'm the son, just borrowing it.
I reckon it's a few months worth of cleanups on aisle 4 to pay off a DUI in town.
The Academy Award winner takes a seat here in Studio 5.
Deep down inside, there's a good man in there.
At number 3.
Top of the morning to you from K-Hug.
I'm not doing internet or social media. I'm a dinosaur and proud of it.
Full House's Uncle Joey now plays a DJ at a Christian radio station in the new PureFlix streaming comedy, Live and Local.
Saddle up, partner. We got a show to do, eh?
We got Tommy and Tina with you live and local.
Tommy, what about your new diet, huh?
I'm fine.
So there's a new series out called Live and Local. Yes. And I understand a certain singer is making an appearance. What can you tell us?
Man, I'll be honest. I didn't fully understand what this was. I just saw that Uncle Joey was playing this character. It's about this Christian radio station, you know, and all like the things that go on behind the scenes that maybe the world would never see or hear. Which I think is brilliant, because I have seen and heard some of those behind the scenes moments, and they're hilarious. But they brought on some real guests like myself, honored to be one of those guests, to talk about life like they would in real life. So to me, it was actually like a real interview. It was like you and I talking, you know, but it was just Uncle Joey, which is kind of awesome.
And you are stylish. My hair looks up to your hair.
Yeah.
At number 2. We head to Lancaster, Pennsylvania to Sight and Sound Theater for a major announcement.
And now, we're turning the page on the next chapter of the Sight and Sound story. It's time to pick up the camera again.
Lights, camera, action.
Hello and welcome to the headquarters of Sight and Sound Films. This newly renovated state-of-the-art studio is where films will be written and produced. It even includes our very own 20-acre backlot for film production, right next to our theater here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Welcome back to Studio 5. We'll wrap this week's countdown in just a little bit. Stay tuned for the #1 story in the next segment of the show. Right now, we'll return to our extended coverage of Father Stu with Mel Gibson. He plays the role of Bill Long, Father Stu's dad. Their relationship is strained, but Bill Long endures suffering, pride, and eventually redemption.
Does Bill know you're fussing with his truck?
I'm his son. I'm just borrowing it.
I reckon it's a few months' worth of cleanups on aisle 4 to pay off a DUI impound.
Mel, how would you describe Bill Long?
I'm praying for you, Bill.
Don't you dare. I think he was kind of an agnostic and just a regular guy who was, you know, venal as in all aspects of like people, you know, and but deep down inside, there's a good man in there, you know.
And you had the opportunity to have conversations with him before doing the film?
I spoke to him on the phone only. I've actually never met him in person.
Wow.
Rosie, the writer, met him in person, but I never did. But I had some nice conversations with him, and he's a man of few words, but even with what he doesn't say, he says a lot.
I love it.
Yeah.
Why, I know it was important for him to tell this story. He wanted his son's story told.
Yeah.
Why do you think that was so important?
Well, I think his son's story had an incredibly transformative effect on his own life. And of course, he was very proud of that boy, and he wanted a tribute paid to him, and it has been, and I think very well. Yeah.
I would agree with you. I know that you are passionate about your Catholic faith as well as Mark Wahlberg, and this, of course, is the story of someone who does become a Catholic priest. What role did that faith for you play in coming to this film?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's when I read the screenplay, it was written by someone who isn't, which is kind of a good thing. Because she was able to sort of scratch her head and ask some interesting questions about it, you know, and a lot of those questions or those like initial understandings of what it was caused me to laugh, and so you know, and then that element of what's in the screenplay. I think the surprising thing about the film is that it's so humorous, you know? Yes. It almost pokes fun at itself, and it's like, because, come on, it's pretty absurd if you think about some of the stuff, and it's like, but he overcomes all that stuff and starts to see what's behind it, which is like amazing. But for me, I think approaching it like that and approaching it as real people, you know, they're real people. It's not a film that kind of faith-based, kind of preach to the choir type film. It's not saccharine. It's, you know, it's probably going to get an R rating for language, but by the same token, where it takes you is someplace real wholesome and good, I think.
I agree with you there. Would you call this a faith-based film?
Yeah. not in the strict formula of it, no, but I just think it's a compelling story. And it just happens to have an element of deep faith in it. So it's, yeah, it breaks a few of the rules. But I think that's what's good about it, because, you know, it shows you who real people are.
Well, you can't say I never gave you nothing.
Yeah, I skipped over thanking you. Went straight to the source.
As you heard, Mel Gibson did have the opportunity to speak with the real-life Bill Long on the phone before shooting the film, where the world can now watch the story play out on the big screen. And speaking of screen, it's time to screen this week's Studio 5 Snapshot. This is your weekly look at a story in pictures.
A quick look at some of the faces in front of and behind the camera in the new BET Plus series, Kingdom Business, premiering May 19th. It's the story of a fictional queen of gospel music whose music has been heard around the world, when suddenly there's a new, younger powerhouse performer whose talent may outshine all. This photo preview is this week's Studio 5 Snapshot. Coming up.
What can I get for you, miss? I got beef.
I can see that.
Teresa Ruiz shares her character's relationship to the real-life Father Stu.
There's a little audio that they shared with me during the pre-production, and he said, you know, before I was a priest, I had a girlfriend, and her name was Carmen, and she was the most beautiful, most kind girl. I didn't want her to be a priest because of her. I didn't want to leave her.
More on Carmen when Studio 5 returns.
Welcome back to Studio 5. The next chapter we want to share in the life of Father Stu is the woman who inspired his decision to go to church, even if his initial motives weren't pure. Teresa Ruiz plays the role of Carmen in this biographical drama.
What can I get for you, miss? I got beef.
I can see that.
Hey! Hey!
Let's not waste either of our time. I'm a Catholic.
Well, ain't that what confession's for?
I can't date someone who isn't baptized.
Where's the water? I'll do it now. I know I'm not what you used to, and not what you deserve either.
What are your initial thoughts when you first hear Father Stu's story?
That I didn't know anything about him. You know, they told me they're gonna send you a script about Father Stu, and I've never heard anything about it. And I read the script, and the more I read, the more I was impressed by this beautiful story that needed to be shared, you know, because it's a story of transformation and vocation and just like, what is it? Like diligence, like he never gave up no matter what. Perseverance.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what came to my heart when I read the script.
I think God saw something in you worth saving, but it's up to you to decide what you've got to offer.
It's the place you told me you believe in me.
Now, you play the role of Carmen. What do you think she meant to him?
There was a little audio that they shared with me because Carmen is a real life character. There's a little audio that they shared with me during the pre-production, and he said, you know, before I was a priest, I had a girlfriend, and her name was Carmen, and she was the most beautiful, most kind girl. I didn't want her to be a priest because of her. I didn't want her to leave her. And she was Hispanic, and she had a whole community, and she had a family, and it was just so hard. And that's what I heard, that audio, and then I knew exactly what kind of girl she was, because that's my community, you know, that's who I am. As a Mexican, as a Mexican American. So I thought I'll bring that generosity, that love, that hard-working spirit that we have. He asked for the tired and the poor.
I'm an out-of-work actor, hello?
Was it a role that was easy to settle into? I know, reading reviews from the director and things she said about your performance, was it a role to easily settle into for you?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't, because I think it has an ease. The entire movie has an ease, but we rehearsed for over a month. And also for me, the dialogue was so crafted, so well crafted.
Yeah.
There were so many lines that were like, almost like when you do Shakespeare and you have to make it sound colloquial, right? But it's not colloquial. So I think Father Stu has a lot of that. It has a lot of like lifted poetry in the dialogue, and you have to make it sound like these are just things that you say. So it was a challenge to find the rhythm inside of me, to find the rhythm with Mark, who had the character much worked, because I came in a little bit later into the pre-production. And then and then to be with Mel, and then see, because Mel is a master, right?
Yeah.
So you're like figuring it out, and he's you know,
he's got it.
so you're like, all right, so I guess that's how you do it. All right.
What was it like working with those men?
Incredible experience. I feel like I was just telling someone else that Mark, I was so impressed by his talent. That a lot of the scenes I would show up with just an idea of around how they would be, and then I would sit down and I would just sit in front of them for them to light me, and then all these emotion would arise from me just from seeing him. because he was so vulnerable, so honest, so it's like he just believes, you know, like his imagination just believes, and he's Father Stu. And with Mel, I felt like electrified, you know. I'm sure that's how it felt to act opposite Brando or act opposite one of the really, really great ones, you know. Yeah. I felt like it was a privilege to have that experience.
Again, Father Stu is a biographical drama. It is written and directed by Rosalind Ross. We have now made it to the final story in this week's countdown of the 5 best stories in uplifting entertainment. Here is what's finishing on top this week.
At number 1, Shazam. From superhero.
I don't know where we go from here. I don't know what comes next, but this. We did this.
To Super Bowl champion, Zachary Levi sits down to chat about his latest role, author.
I was running from pain. My whole life I was running from pain.
Opening up about his struggles, mental health, and his faith in his new book, Radical Love, Learning to Accept Yourself and Others.
How does it feel sitting here now knowing I think at one point I'm reading that you felt you lost God and he was gone?
Oh man, I was driving around in Austin recently. Driving up this road that was kind of near the house that I was staying in when I was having this breakdown in this cilantro restaurant where I was having this breakdown, and I was driving by it and it just all flooded back. I was like, oh wow. Like I remember being right here and thinking there is no hope and there's no way I'm moving beyond this. There is no way I'm going to live beyond this month. And I was very much alive, and I was very much living my dreams as I was now driving by the same road. And I was so grateful. Oh man, so grateful that I didn't do something so stupid and so drastic. And that I get to sit here and talk about this book that hopefully, if nothing else, helps at least one person walk through the flames that I was able to get through.
Just moments away.
I'm trying to be a priest, pal.
Welcome back. You're in Studio 5, where music fuels this weekly production, and today it comes from Doe. Take a look and a listen and hear why so good it's what's playing in my ear this week. Before we say goodbye this week, we want to give the final word to Mel Gibson, who plays the role of Bill Long, Father Stuart Long's dad in Father Stu.
So we're talking about a man who has a tough childhood. He comes from a broken home. He's got professional disappointments, a disastrous motorcycle accident, a deadly health diagnosis, but he still seems to arrive at a sense of purpose in all of this. What do you think that is?
Well, he's a fighter, you know. And as he says in the film, he was fighting for all the wrong reasons, and then he figured out how to slug it out with, you know, with the real enemy, and that's probably the darker aspects of himself, and triumph over the infirmities that he was given, and he came to see them as a gift, and he overcame them perfectly, you know, not perfect, but you know, pretty well. I mean, better than I do. I'd be screaming and whining if I got dealt that hand, I think. But he was an incredible example to us all. And you only do something like that through humility. And you don't get humility until you acknowledge that there's something bigger than you.
Mel Gibson, thank you. That is a great final word for this edition of Studio 5 and for this week's look at uplifting entertainment. Until next time, make time to uplift someone around you, and then please come on back and see where Studio 5 takes you next week. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching.